Oldest event on the motor racing calendar and the halfway point in this year's desperately close World Championship. Already the season had seen no fewer than 6 different winners in 8 races. Would the newly extended Dijon circuit provide yet another victor? But the front row of the starting grid had a familiar look about it. Mario Andretti with the John Player Lotus and James Hunt in the Marlboro McLaren. World Championship leader Jody Scheckter was struggling a little. He was only 7th fastest in practice with the Wolf Ford. Did the South African think that this was the most competitive season ever?
I think with good drivers getting to good cars all the time, and it seems to be becoming more competitive. I think it's getting 25% more competitive every year in the last 4 years since I've been in racing. Just more competitive every year.
Before the race, Niki Lauda was just 1 point behind Scheckter at the top of the championship chart, but the brave Austrian had his problems.
Well, for example, we tested here last week with a test car which wasn't as good as my race car. We did a 13.0 easy, and here I'm struggling doing 13.5 with my race car and really driving with much more risk and much more over the limit. And plus we don't know why we can't repeat our time.
And what did Brabham driver John Watson, 4th fastest in practice, think of the newly revived and lengthened Dijon track?
The extension on the circuit doesn't give anybody any greater chance of overtaking than the short circuit used to do, so while it adds a little bit of length to the circuit and it makes it a bit longer in terms of time, it there's no reason to overtake anyone.
It certainly hasn't been James Hunt's season. Was he disillusioned, or did he expect better results at Dijon?
But the thing is that I have a very good team behind me. The McLaren team, probably the best, the most professional, the most consistent in motor racing. The consistency is desired to them for the moment, but that's one of those things. I feel that we're working harder now than we ever worked last year at any stage. Winning is easy, losing is really tough, and we're working very hard. All we can do is not get depressed and keep persevering, and if one does that, for sure you get rewarded. I've been around too long to ever expect it to turn around at any time. If you ever go to a race expecting things to go well, it's rather like going to a party. The parties you do want to go to are always awful. The parties you don't want to go to, you always end up having a really good time. Motor racing I find very like that. So, I'm not expecting anything, but the car seems to be quite good. We seem to have a reasonable chance here, and I'm just going to get out there and do my best.
Indeed, Hunt was on the front row of the grid, but he still had half a second to make up on pole position man Mario Andretti. A millionaire from his racing in the States, was Andretti now totally committed to Formula One racing?
All along during my career, I always had my sights at the possible honest try at the World Championship, and many people didn't take me seriously, but by golly, I am serious.
80 laps, 22 cars, and it was a sensational but safe start. It was James Hunt who got away for the best start, and John Watson went round into 2nd place, round the outside of Jack Lafitte's Ligier, the car which won in Sweden 2 weeks earlier. But it was definitely Hunt at the start, James Hunt leading for the first time for about 4 months. Hunt, of course, did very well in the opening season races in Argentina and Brazil, and here showing that old form which won the World Championship. Hunt now in the McLaren M26, the very latest car from the McLaren factory just behind London's Heathrow Airport, and that car number 7, John Watson. So on that opening first lap it was James Hunt leading, John Watson was 2nd, and there you see Watson, then the Ligier of Lafitte, and then 4th Mario Andretti, and 5th his teammate Gunnar Nilsson in the 2nd Lotus. Hunt's car twitching a little bit. In these opening laps, the drivers certainly have to be careful not to overheat the tyres, because the cars are full of fuel, about 40 gallons of fuel on board, and this was to prove a very vital point. And there is Hunt completing the first lap, and look at those tyre marks from that sensational start. So Hunt first, Watson 2nd, and Mario Andretti sneaking into 3rd place past the blue and white Ligier, and Mario Andretti cleanly takes 3rd place. Andretti very much the man of the moment. On pole position, been on pole position in fact for 4 of the last 6 races. And the John Player Lotus designed by Colin Chapman, currently the car to beat. That's John Watson, that car, the Brabham Alfa Romeo, using a flat 12 Alfa Romeo engine, giving about 520 brake horsepower, and that's probably about 30 more than James Hunt's McLaren, which uses a Ford Cosworth engine. course, the Cosworth Ford just recorded its 100th victory. 100th victory it recorded at Monaco, and that was a win for Jody Scheckter and the Wolf. Scheckter not featuring so well at the Dijon circuit in France. Dijon not the regular home of the French Grand Prix. It's usually held down in the south of France at Paul Ricard. Racing worked very hard to get this M26 car into a competitive state. The car actually first seen in public almost a year ago. Their Hunt finished the second lap in first place, second John Watson, and third was Mario Andretti. Watson hounding Hunt because he was looking for an opening to dive past. John Watson desperately unlucky in racing this year. There's a 22-car field going round this curving Dijon track, just newly extended. A good little track. A huge crowd turned up to witness the action. There, Lafitte in fourth place, fifth Gunnar Nielsen, sixth Jody Scheckter, seventh Brambilla, eighth Jones, and there the overtaking mover, the overtaking movement from John Watson. John Watson moved ahead of James Hunt on that lap 5. So from lap 5 it was Jody Scheckter in the lead, John, on lap 5, sorry, it was of course John Watson in the lead, James Hunt second, Mario Andretti third, and Jean-Pierre Jarry, the very first retirement, the Frenchman stopping with gearbox trouble in the ATS Penske. Sad, an early ending to the Parisians race. So John Watson established himself in the lead and soon started to pull away from the dicing battle there of James Hunt and Mario Andretti. Fourth Ligier, fifth Gunnar Nielsen, sixth Jody Scheckter, seventh that's Brambilla, eighth Lauder, and ninth was Alan Jones. 10th that's a six-wheel Tyrrell, and then came Reutemann, then another six-wheel Tyrrell, then the Ensign, then Hans Stuck. There's Nazario, Ian Scheckter. James Hunt now concentrating on holding second place from a hard-trying Mario Andretti. And there's plenty of early action because David Purley spun off into the long grass with his Lec car, the one-off Lec car built in Bognor Regis, and Patrese followed the following lap on lap 6. Riccardo Patrese, a young Italian, spun off when his engine seized and he was out of the race. And meanwhile it was John Watson who started to pull away from the battle between Hunt and Andretti. Ligier was fourth, and there Andretti dives to the inside, trying to get past Hunt. Hunt was having none of it, and keeping Andretti behind him. John Watson meanwhile was getting on with his job of work for the day, and that was to lead the motor race. Ligier was still there, Gunnar Nielsen was behind, and Jody Scheckter a little out of contention. Nicky Lauda quickly moved up through the field. The two Tyrrells of Depailler and Peterson ran in convoy. Burning hot day for the French Grand Prix. That makes it particularly hard on the drivers, of course, swathed in their 3 layers of fireproof overalls. But on lap 17, Mario Andretti had managed to pass James Hunt and move up into second place. But now, could he challenge John Watson? That was the question everyone was asking. Depailler was another early retirement. He dropped out on lap 21. Six-wheel Tyrrell apparently receiving a bit of a push from behind from Hans Stuck. The two tangled, and while Stuck was able to continue, Patrick Depailler in the six-wheel Tyrrell was very definitely out of the race. John Watson meanwhile had pulled out a 5-second lead on the battle between Mario Andretti, and that's him in car number 5, and James Hunt of course carrying number 1. Ronnie Peterson was already a lap behind these. Car number 7, John Watson then, the Belfast driver, now lives in Bognor Regis. He's only won 1 Grand Prix, John Watson. Driving a Penske, he won the Austrian Grand Prix a couple of years ago. Desperately unlucky this season. And there's some of the back markers who have already been lapped, and sad to see Emerson Fittipaldi in that little group. Ian Scheckter in front of the Fittipaldi car, and Mario Andretti driving straight past Fittipaldi, and now closing on Ian Scheckter, brother of course of Jody Scheckter. Ian driving the Rockland Moss. And this was the position at halfway. John Watson had pulled out that 5-second lead. Mario Andretti was second and had pulled a little out from James Hunt, and the Ligier was still fourth. There, Mario Andretti just slipped past inside Ian Schecter's march. And you can just see the heat haze coming up from temperatures up in the 80s at the Dijon circuit, in the mustard part of France, of course, the part of France where all the mustard comes from, and a very attractive area it is too. Close racing around this 2.3-mile circuit. And it was in the last 15 laps that suddenly Mario Andretti closed right up on John Watson. There you see him right up the gearbox of John Watson's car as they close up on a couple of back markers. And that's Ligier. The Ligier has just spun off there and had a tangle with Hans Stuck's Brabham. Not a happy race for Hans Stuck, the teammate, of course, of John Watson, who is leading the race. With 10 laps to go, everybody was asking, had Mario Andretti just been sandbagging, just holding it easy, and was he going to make a late challenge and roar past John Watson? Well, there's Andretti. Long lens of the cameras, slowing down the cars, of course, perhaps doing 130 miles an hour at this point. They look really slow. It almost looked like a slow motion picture. And a real bunch, a real gaggle there as John Watson and Mario Andretti overtake Jody Scheckter and Clay Regazzoni. Now they're fighting for 7th place, and the other two, of course, fighting for the lead. And John Watson managed to get in front of the other two, leaving poor old Mario Andretti trapped behind Jody Scheckter. That's Clay Regazzoni in the ensign, built in Walsall. Flash of a Ferrari flag, trying to urge on the two Ferraris, but they were down in 5th and 6th places. Not a good race for Ferraris, with Niki Lauda 5th, and his teammate Carlos Reutemann of Argentina 6th. And there Mario Andretti managed to get round the outside of Jody Scheckter to carry on his chase of John Watson. And another car spinning off, but that looked like Clay Regazzoni just spinning off. And there Jack Lafitte into the pits and out again. Lafitte, who lost his nose in an early little spin with Hans Stuck. John Watson crossing the line with about 2 laps to go, just 2 laps to go, and John Watson was in the lead, and he had Mario Andretti right on his gearbox. It looks as if Watson had everything in hand though. Andretti looking for a place to pass, but there just wasn't a place to pass. But there would be a place to pass if that Martini Brabham just faltered slightly. You can never let up with a driver like Mario Andretti just inches behind you. Some of the back markers going through the picture. James Hunt still in the 3rd, but distant 3rd place in these closing stages of the French Grand Prix at Dijon. Watson and Andretti still locked in battle with just a few miles left of this 9th round of the World Championship. And 1 lap to go. Just 1 lap to go. That's Gunnar Nielsen. There Watson goes on for the last lap. He's still in the lead, but Andretti is still just inches behind him. And it was to be a fateful lap for Watson. Red Brabham Alpha against the John Player Lotus Ford. Andretti's still looking for a way past. Looking as if he was going to make it, but no. Granted, of course, there's 1 lap to some of the other drivers.